Dealerships are literally actively sending customers away from legacy brands and pushing them to Tesla and other direct-to-consumer brands. In this video, I'm going to be exposing how legacy automotive dealerships are sabotaging the manufacturers they represent. They're gutting them from the inside out. I'm Josh West, and this is Josh West 24/7. I'm a 15-year veteran of Legacy Automotive and a top performer in the field, but now I see that the Legacy Auto dealership network is completely obsolete, and I'm going to continue to show you why. Once an essential part of the growing auto industry, dealerships have become the bane of legacy auto manufacturers. The first dealership in the United States was established in 1898 by William E. Metzler. Back then, the telephone was just a new gadget, and the internet hadn't even been imagined yet. Independently owned car dealerships were the avenue that manufacturers used to distribute and retail their new products. It all made sense in that analog world of newspapers and face-to-face business. The dealers would buy the vehicles from the manufacturer, mark them up, and sell them at a profit. They would look after local advertising, build brand awareness, and look after service needs, and of course build a relationship with the new customer. Now, with the advent of the internet, online shopping, artificial intelligence, and handheld supercomputers, these dealerships have simply become roadblocks to an advancing automotive industry. Roadblocks to the manufacturers and roadblocks to the customers. So if I had to boil this entire topic down to one word, that word would be control. Legacy auto manufacturers have no control over their dealerships. They may say they do through dealership contracts and things like that, but when it comes down to the actual transaction where the customer sits in the dealership and experiences the purchase process of buying a new vehicle, the manufacturer has no control at all. In fact, just ask a few people that have bought a car recently. You'll get a different response from each and every one of them based on their own unique experiences. There's no consistency across the board. Imagine if Starbucks had independently owned coffee locations. You can imagine that going into one in Seattle would be a very different experience than going into one in Moncton, New Brunswick. The reason why those experiences are almost the same these days is because Starbucks kept control of their entire network. Each and every store is corporately owned and therefore corporately controlled. This results in a better, more consistent experience for the customer. Now, this is just a cup of coffee we're talking about, but what about when it comes down to the second largest purchase that most people make in their lifetime? Shouldn't that be consistent and fair across the board? Because it's not. In fact, it's far from it. Right now, auto manufacturers are realizing their predicament and they're preparing to declare war on their dealership networks. The headlines are very clear. Ford has already made it very clear, Volvo, and a number of other brands that are just finally waking up to the fact that their dealership network is killing them from the inside out. Companies like Ford, Stellantis, Hyundai are actively tightening the noose on their dealerships. They're clawing back discount program monies, bonuses, etc., clamping down hard on customer service surveys in an attempt to punish dealerships who treat their customers poorly, or like dealers have for years gone by. Dealerships, in their fundamental approach, set up roadblocks and hurdles for customers to get over in order to buy a car. Their goal is to get the customer into the dealership so they can get as much control as they can and go to work extracting every last dollar out of that customer. Dealerships set up gimmicks and tricks in an attempt to differentiate themselves from other dealerships, when in fact, they're all the same. Same product, same experience, same vehicle costs. Therefore, in some way, they're actually forced to resort to silly games and gimmicks, which reflect very poorly on the manufacturer. Can you imagine an elderly customer coming through the door of a dealership and then being told that in order to receive a discount on the vehicle they want to buy, they'll need to throw a basketball or kick a soccer ball into a net? And based on their athletic ability of where that ball goes, they'll receive a discount of a certain amount, perhaps $500, $1,000, or what have you. To me, that is the ultimate in discrimination. Absolutely disgusting. Can you imagine a person with a special disability or some type of physical ailment that would prevent them from performing at a certain level of athletic ability? This is insane. And yet it continues on in legacy automotive dealerships. Why not just have simply the best price? Why? Because they're forced in some strange way to differentiate themselves from the dealership down the road. First of all, there's way too many dealerships, way too much inventory, and these manufacturers have completely lost control. They end up having these dealerships cutting each other's throats in order to get just a couple of deals here and there. It's a very flawed business strategy. By design, purchasing a vehicle at a legacy car dealership is a very high intensity, high stress situation. By contrast, purchasing direct to consumer from the likes of Rivian or Tesla is very smooth, very calm, and stress-free. You just simply order on your phone. What happens in car dealerships is that you are actually penalized for not being a very good negotiator. Is that fair? Is it fair that somebody that has a more introverted personality must pay a higher price than someone who perhaps has picked up and read a few books on how to negotiate or how to push for the best deal? Is that fair? Especially when we're purchasing the second largest item that we ever will as a consumer in our life, statistically speaking here. Can you imagine if Apple ran their business like the car industry, where they had independent dealerships, no Apple store, but you had to go into Bob's Cell Phones and purchase your new Apple product from them. But in order to get the best price, you had to sit down and haggle and go back and forth with the manager for several hours. Do you really think that Apple would be as successful as they are if they went with a dealership type model? I highly doubt it. Part of the reason that iPhones hold their value so well is that the prices are fixed. You come in, you buy the phone, that's the price, end of story, move on with your life. But this nonsense of being able to negotiate thousands and thousands of dollars here and there and playing games and throwing in trips and barbecues and all of this nonsense only adds to the stress and the destruction of the industry itself. So if dealerships are so bad, then what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is DTC, or direct to consumer, such as Tesla. In fact, many of the products that you already purchase are on a direct to consumer type setup. Apple, Starbucks, just to name a few. Tesla has an exceptionally calm and streamlined purchase process. You just order on your phone or your tablet. And if you do want to go and see the car, you certainly can. Tesla has galleries set up. But again, they don't have commission salespeople looking to close a deal as soon as you walk in the door. They're just simply to showcase the vehicle. That's it. It's super simple. And if you still want to go on a test drive, even test drive centers are now becoming autonomous. Tesla is rolling out test drive centers without humans present. Simply scan your phone, fill out your information, and instantly your phone becomes the car key. You take your drive, and that's it. They have all your info for sales follow-up, and the customer gets a far better, more intimate ownership sample experience. Meanwhile, legacy dealerships mandate that a salesperson be present for the test drive. They tell them it's for insurance purposes, but in reality, it's to build rapport, build relationship with the customer, and to gain ammunition to be able to close the sale later on. During this test drive process, the customer is always on guard. They're never themselves because they're with a stranger in the car. Dealerships even have maps posted for strict test drive routes, forcing the driver to focus on where they are going and not on what they are driving. One of the biggest problems that legacy auto manufacturers have with their dealerships is pricing. If you haven't heard already, Tesla is and will continue to lower their prices as they continue to cut costs. In retaliation, the legacy auto manufacturers can cut their prices, but they still do not control what the customer pays. The legacy auto dealership controls what the customer pays. Dealerships charge all sorts of fees that they add on to the manufacturer's suggested retail price. If you want a better idea of what kind of profits dealerships make, check out my dealership profits video. I'll put a card for it up here in the corner. Dealerships tack on all sorts of fees on top of the manufacturer's recommended pricing. The problem with this is that it distances the legacy brand's pricing from the direct-to-consumer brands who aren't tacking on all sorts of these fees, putting the legacy brands at a bigger disadvantage. Every dollar of commission paid to a legacy dealer salesperson and sales manager is a dollar of profit lost by that legacy manufacturer. So let's talk about markups. EVs are what's selling, and dealers are adding fees and inflating prices in order to survive on the small margins that EVs have. This hinders legacy EV sales and drives consumers away over to other DTC brands. Dealerships are literally actively sending customers away from legacy brands and pushing them to Tesla and other direct-to-consumer brands by adding on all these other nonsense fees and the terrible treatment of their customers. Manufacturers are waking up, and they're working day and night with every lawyer that they can find to figure out a way to eliminate their dealership network, at least in its current form. And I believe that they will take back control of the sales process within the next couple of years or sooner. Direct to consumer is the only way forward for these manufacturers. So basically what's happening is the dealerships are screwing over the manufacturers. The manufacturers are waking up and realizing this and trying to get rid of their dealerships as quickly as possible. at least rework the entire sales process and take back control and sell direct. But this mentality of fighting back and forth between the two hierarchies is trickling its way right down into the dealership level. Sales managers and dealer principals screwing over their staff, and then their staff feeling entitled to screw over their employer. In fact, I just heard about a story of a Legacy Auto dealership where there were employees, including managers, who set up a numbered company, were buying vehicles elsewhere, selling them into the dealership's used car inventory at inflated prices, taking those profits for themselves, and then leaving that dealership stuck with that inventory. And then I heard about another story where same type of idea, they've created a shell company, but they're buying vehicles that they bring in on trade at reduced prices and then selling them and flipping them on the side and taking the profits. And then I just heard about another guy at another dealership who was just caught and charged for embezzling $69,000. Now, nice work on the number, but where on earth is this coming from? This type of rampant corruption, fraud, and deceit and criminal activity seems to be rampant throughout Legacy Automotive. I can tell you, it's a mess and it's not improving. In fact, it's getting a lot worse. Time will tell exactly where the chips fall for Legacy Automotive, but I can tell you this, it's not going to be pretty. And if you work in Legacy Automotive, the time to move is now. The time to look for another career is now. Because one day you're going to come to the dealership doors to go to work and they're going to be locked, and you're going to make that phone call and the voice on the other end is going to tell you that that dealership is no longer in business. The day is coming, mark my words. The internet never forgets, and this video will still be here. So come back and check in a few years if you don't believe me. We'll see you in the next video.